It's 2025, and the most important economic agreement in modern history just expired. And if you're not paying attention, if you're scrolling through social media, worrying about next month's bills, trusting that someone somewhere has this all figured out, you're about to watch your savings, your salary, and your entire standard of living collapse in real time. For 50 years, every barrel of oil sold anywhere on Earth was priced in US dollars. Think about that for a second. Every country, every economy, every factory that needed energy had to buy dollars first. This created something unprecedented: artificial demand for American currency. It meant the United States could print unlimited money, rack up trillions in debt, run massive trade deficits, and never face consequences. We became the world's most powerful nation not because we produced the most or innovated the best, but because we controlled the one thing everyone needed. But here's what they're not telling you on the evening news. That system just ended. The Petrodollar agreement expired in 2025, and with it, the dollar's global dominance is dying. Most people won't see it coming. Actually, most people don't even know it's happening right now. But the smart money, they've already moved. They're buying gold, farmland, foreign assets, anything that holds value when paper currency turns to dust. And trust me, what I'm about to show you will fundamentally change how you see every dollar in your wallet. Let me take you back, because this story doesn't start in 2025. It starts on August 10th, 1971. Richard Nixon appears on television and tells the world that the United States is temporarily closing the gold window. Translation: the dollar is no longer backed by gold. It's just paper. Promise. And Nixon's administration knew immediately they had a problem, because if the dollar is just paper, why would anyone accept it? The answer came 3 years later, and it was brilliant. Evil, but brilliant. In 1974, Henry Kissinger made a deal with Saudi Arabia. Simple on paper, devastating in execution. Here's how it worked. Saudi Arabia, the world's largest oil exporter, would price all of their oil exclusively in US dollars, not euros, not yen, not gold dollars. And in exchange, the United States would provide military protection, sell them weapons, and guarantee their security against regional threats. But here's the key that most people miss. This wasn't just Saudi Arabia. Through OPEC, the deal extended to nearly every major oil-producing nation on Earth. Venezuela, Nigeria, UAE, Kuwait, all of them. Oil for dollars. Dollars for oil. This created something absolutely unprecedented in human history. Forced global demand for US currency. If you're Japan and you need oil, you need dollars first. Germany, dollars. China building factories, dollars. The entire world economy ran on a currency that we could print at will. We exported inflation, imported goods, and everyone else paid the bill. You know what's crazy? The petrodollar system was more important than our military, more important than Silicon Valley, more important than anything else. Because control of currency meant control of trade, and control of trade meant control of everything. For 50 years, this worked flawlessly. The dollar remained the world's reserve currency not because of economic strength or gold backing, but because of oil. Every central bank bought US Treasury bonds. Every country held dollars in reserve, and America got to borrow unlimited amounts at artificially low interest rates. We won the global lottery, and we didn't even have to buy a ticket. But here's what nobody told you. That agreement had an expiration date. In 2023, Saudi Arabia quietly announced they would not renew the petrodollar agreement. Wait, let me back up for a second. Did you see that on CNN? Was it front page news? Did your elected representatives warn you? No. Most Americans have no idea it even happened. But in financial circles, in central banks, in the rooms where actual power resides, everyone knows the foundation just cracked. And once a currency system built purely on confidence starts to crack, the collapse accelerates faster than you can imagine. Saudi Arabia isn't stupid. They've been preparing for this for years, diversifying, building relationships with China, Russia, India. In 2023, they joined BRICS, the economic alliance specifically designed to challenge dollar dominance. They're now accepting yuan for oil sales to China. They're discussing rupees with India. They're even exploring pricing oil in a basket of currencies, or returning to gold-backed settlements. Every single move is designed to reduce dependence on the dollar. And they're not alone. Let me give you the numbers, because the scale of what's happening should terrify you. In 2000, roughly 73% of global foreign exchange reserves were held in US dollars. By 2020, down to 59%. By 2024, under 55%. That might not sound dramatic, but in the world of reserve currencies, it's a free fall. Central banks are diversifying out of dollars at the fastest pace since World War II. China has reduced its U.S. Treasury holdings by over $300 billion since 2021. Russia dumped nearly all of its dollar reserves and has been stockpiling gold instead. India is conducting trade in rupees. Brazil and Argentina are settling in their own currencies. Even France, a supposed ally, has been quietly reducing dollar exposure. The world is waking up to what should have been obvious all along. The emperor has no clothes, but what the world's central banks understand that most Americans don't is about to become painfully clear. Here's where it gets personal. Because this isn't just about geopolitics or central banks making power moves. This is about your paycheck, your mortgage, your ability to buy groceries next year. The dollar's strength has nothing to do with how hard you work or how productive the American economy is. It's about artificial demand, created by the petrodollar system. When that demand disappears, the supply of dollars doesn't change. We've printed trillions. But if the world doesn't need those dollars anymore, they all come flooding back home. That's called inflation. Except it won't be the 6% or 8% you've been dealing with. It'll be the kind of inflation that destroys middle-class savings in months, not years. For 50 years, the world absorbed our inflation. We printed money, and they held it in reserves or bought our bonds. Now they're selling, they're diversifying, they're getting out. And when those dollars return, when foreign central banks dump treasury bonds, when global trade shifts to other currencies, the purchasing power of your dollar collapses. The price of imports, gas, electronics, clothing, medicine, everything made outside America, which is almost everything, becomes unaffordable. Your savings lose value faster than you can spend them. And here's the part that should absolutely terrify you. The government can't stop it. The Federal Reserve talks about controlling inflation, but their tools don't work when the problem is loss of reserve currency status. They can raise interest rates, sure, but that crashes the economy and makes our $36 trillion debt unsustainable. They can print more money, but that accelerates inflation and drives more countries away from the dollar. There's no good option. It's checkmate. And the people in power know it. That's why they're not talking about it. Because if the public understood what's happening, the panic alone would accelerate the collapse. Better to keep everyone calm, keep everyone ignorant, and let the disaster unfold slowly enough that most people don't connect the dots until it's too late. But the smart money already connected the dots. And when the richest, most informed people on Earth suddenly change their behavior, you should pay attention. Billionaires are buying farmland. Bill Gates now owns more farmland than anyone in America, not because he suddenly loves agriculture, but because land produces food, and food has value regardless of what happens to paper currency. Ray Dalio has allocated massive portions of his fund to gold and foreign currencies. Warren Buffett has been diversifying Berkshire Hathaway into foreign stocks and commodities. Central banks, the institutions that actually manage currencies, are buying gold at record levels. Russia, China, India, Turkey, Poland, all loading up on physical gold while reducing dollar reserves. In 2023 alone, central banks purchased over 1,000 tons of gold. That's the most in decades. Why? Because they know the dollar's reserve status is ending. And when it does, hard assets like gold hold value while paper currencies collapse. These aren't conspiracy theorists. These are the most successful, best-informed financial actors on Earth. They're voting with their wallets, and they're voting against the dollar. Let me walk you through what happens next, because the petrodollar ending isn't the final collapse. It's the first domino. First, oil-producing nations start accepting other currencies. That's already happening. This reduces global dollar demand immediately. Second, countries holding massive dollar reserves start selling. They don't want to be the last one holding the bag. When they sell, Treasury bond prices fall and interest rates spike. Third, rising interest rates make U.S. government debt unsustainable. We're already at $36 trillion in national debt. Interest payments alone are approaching $1 trillion per year. If rates keep rising, that number doubles or triples. The only option becomes printing money to pay the debt. Fourth, printing money to pay debt accelerates inflation. Prices rise. People demand higher wages. Companies raise prices more. The spiral begins. Fifth, inflation destroys confidence in the currency. People start looking for alternatives, foreign currencies, gold, crypto. The flight from the dollar accelerates into a stampede. This isn't one problem. It's systemic failure. A currency crisis triggers a debt crisis, which triggers a banking crisis, which triggers a political crisis. When people can't afford food, they riot. When governments can't pay salaries, they collapse. When banks can't honor withdrawals, they close. The entire social contract depends on economic stability, and that stability rests on currency confidence. We're watching that confidence break in real time. Every global reserve currency eventually fails. The Spanish silver dollar collapsed in the 1600s. The Dutch guilder in the 1700s. The British pound in the 1900s. After World War II, Britain was so broke they couldn't maintain their empire. The pound went from global dominance to regional currency in 2 decades. The dollar has been the reserve since 1944. We're at 80 years longer than most reserve currencies last, and they all ended the same way. Overextension, endless wars, massive debt, currency debasement, loss of confidence. We're watching the exact same pattern. Wars across the Middle East, military bases in 150 countries, trillion-dollar defense budgets, while infrastructure crumbles. The $36 trillion debt that can never be repaid. The money printing to cover deficits. Every symptom is there. Terminal decline. But 2025 is different. In the past, when one currency declined, another replaced it smoothly. This time, there's no clear successor. The euro is a disaster. China's yuan is controlled by authoritarians. Bitcoin is too volatile. Gold can't handle digital transactions. We're heading into a multipolar currency system, and it's going to be chaotic. Currency crises accelerate fast. Venezuela went from stable to hyperinflation in 5 years. Turkey's lira lost 80% of its value in a decade. When the crisis hits America, it'll be a stampede, everyone trying to get out of dollars at once. The government will impose capital controls, force retirement accounts to buy Treasury bonds, possibly ban gold ownership like they did in 1933. They'll create a digital dollar they can track and control. This isn't paranoia. It's what every failing government does. They look, doon, they confiscate, they control. So what do? First, abandon normalcy bias, the belief that things will return to normal. This isn't fixable. Second, diversify out of dollar-denominated assets, real estate, commodities, foreign currency, precious metals, things that retain value. Third, reduce debt and increase flexibility. Fourth, build community. When systems fail, people survive by cooperating. Fifth, educate yourself. Everything I've told you can be verified. The petrodollar system was always temporary, built on power and convenience, not sound economics. For 50 years, it gave America privileges no nation in history ever had. We got to print money and have the world accept it as valuable. We got to run deficits without consequences. We maintained an empire on borrowed money and borrowed time. But every empire ends. Every currency fails. And the patterns are always the same. We're not facing some unprecedented crises. We're facing the same crisis that destroyed Rome, Spain, and Britain, every power that debased its currency and believed the party would never end. The script is written. We're just watching it play out in real time. The petrodollar died in 2025. The dollar's global dominance dies with it. Most Americans will be blindsided because no one in power wants to admit what's happening. But you know now. You've seen the pattern. You understand the timeline. The question isn't whether this happens. It's whether you prepare before it's too late. The answers aren't hiding in some uncertain future. They're written in the past in every empire that made the same mistakes we're making now. History doesn't predict the exact date, but it tells you the outcome with absolute certainty. The dollar's reign is ending, not because of bad luck, but because of mathematical inevitability and historical patterns that have repeated for thousands of years. The question was never if, it was always when. And the answer is now. The petrodollar just died. The empire's foundation just cracked. Everything built on that foundation is coming down. Are you ready? Because ready or not, here it comes.